So I'd like to introduce Brother Evan Jackson. He is our Grand Chapter Junior Vice Polmar, which means for Kappa Alpha Psi from an undergraduate perspective, but he holds the highest office that you can hold. So ask Brother Jackson to talk a little bit about leadership, and Brother Jackson, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Brother Burnett. And good evening, everybody. It's really a pleasure for me to be here. As Brother Burnett knows, I always love speaking to our young Kappa League brothers, and it always gives me joy and pleasure. Really, I'll be brief tonight. I really want to focus on two things that I think are really important in regards to leadership and the small amount of leadership experience that I do have. The two things that I've really realized that are very important are, number one, showing up, and number two, giving back. So I'll break those down a little bit. So number one, showing up. And this is one of the things that our grand Polmar brother Ruben Shelton actually first taught me, and I've realized to be very, very true. And whether it be in Kappa, whether it be in the company that I run, whether it be in my leadership positions within my campus, I realized that the first step is really showing up. And if you don't show up, you can't win, you know, and you realize very quickly that showing up is so important because most people don't show up. And that's a little key that you'll realize that as you continue to grow and develop in your leadership. You know, it's not the smartest people. It's not the people who can, you know, solve a Rubik's Cube in 10 seconds. It's not the people who can code a whole algorithm. It's the people that show up. And you really never realize that, you really never realize how few people really show up and how important that is in leadership. So that's number one. And if you show up, you learn. I'm a firm believer that if you really learn and understand something, if you just show up to hear someone speak, you can provide actionable insights that really become very intuitive. So number one, showing up. Number two, giving back. And that's really why I feel so honored to be on this call. You realize very quickly that you can't learn leadership by yourself. You really can't learn anything by yourself. And I've become very fortunate through my position and everything else that I do to really come in contact with some very, very intelligent people, very, very wise people who have really showed me the way and really showed me how important it is for me to give back now that I'm in a position to, when they've given back to me when they really didn't need to. And so that's why after all of our grand board calls tonight, that's why after a full day of work, I'm always so willing and excited to get on these phone calls because I feel like it's you know, it's my responsibility. And you realize very quickly that as you give back, the more you receive. And that's something that they say about Kappa as well. The more you put into it, the more you get out of it. So I'll leave you with those two big things. Number one, show up. Always make yourself available. Always be willing to get on the phone with someone, and always understand that you're never bigger than anyone else. No matter your accomplishments, you always have to be willing to show up and never take that for granted. And number two, always be willing to give back and make a difference in someone else's life, because you cannot get to where you want to go by yourself, and someone else can't get to where they need to go by themselves. And it's up to us, especially as an African-American community, to give back to each other and make sure that we're pulling each other up.
Thank you, Brother Jackson. Does anyone have any questions? Any of my young men have any questions? We're shy tonight, but anyway, Brother Jackson, I appreciate you. Those are great words, and again, I appreciate your time. And again, because I know you had a full slate going today, and so
yes,
take care. And we'll be talking. We'll be talking at a later point, but appreciate you.
Yes, sir, of course. And if any of the young brothers have any questions moving forward regarding leadership, or even about taking the next step into their college experience, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to give my personal advice there. So thank you guys for having me. Hope to speak to you again soon.
All right, take care. Brother Corey Henderson, and to talk a little bit about diversity and inclusion. And so, Brother Henderson, the floor is yours, and you should be able to share your screen.
He's on mute.
You're mute, sir.
There we go. Sorry about that. Brother Burnett, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here. Good evening, brothers that are also on the Zoom link, and welcome to all the Kappa Leaguers. Quickly, I want to give my background. I know I have about 15 or 20 minutes or so, but just to give my background really quick. I work at the Episcopal School of Dallas. I have been at ESD, it's the acronym, for about 17 years. Actually finished my 17th year. My original hire was to come in as the program director and head boys basketball coach. But like all Kappas, we have much more to offer outside of what our hires were naturally. And so I moved into a role of being in the admissions office, working recruitment and outreach for the school. And then I just most recently was named director of a new program and a new initiative on campus called the Campfire Program. The program is a transitional program for new families and students who are looking, obviously, to transition into ESD. There are certain criteria that you have to meet, but again, I think achievement is something that we all strive for. So Brother Burnett asked me to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm going to put that word in there because you'll see it on the Google Doc here in a second. But there are two questions that I want you to think about. The first one is, what should students look for? And what I mean by that is, what should students look for if you're looking at a school, or what should students be focusing in on if they are in school? The second question is, what advice, I'm gonna give you some advice on how to approach your administration or people that are in decision-making positions. So I'm going to share my screen at this particular time. All right, my apologies for that. All right, so obviously Kappa League, Training for Leadership, you asked me to talk about, which I am, diversity, equity, inclusion in schools. And so right now what I want to do is I want to define diversity, equity, inclusion. And you can read for yourself, but I've highlighted and underlined some things that I think are important. So when we're talking about diversity, understanding that each individual is unique and recognizing our individual differences. When we're talking about equity, seeks to ensure fair treatment, equality of opportunity, and fairness and access to information and resources for all. This particular word is something that we're dealing with right now. We're not equitable in our society in a lot of ways, and sometimes that shows up in your schools. And so that's a word that I want you guys, we're going to go back to that here shortly. Inclusion, so other words, builds a culture of belonging by actively inviting the contribution and participation of all people. And so as I scroll, why is diversity and inclusion important in schools? For me, it's the opportunity to teach and to learn. And so obviously you can read this for yourself, but if we're talking about enriching our culture, there's no other way to do it but to be inclusive. So I'm gonna stop for a second. I want to share a video with you.
Not everyone is given the same opportunity. We're not all given the same chances. But I want my students to feel differently. Recruitment is something I was struggling with. Real inclusion takes effort, and addressing it isn't always easy. But I truly believe there's something for everyone here. There's always a certain type of kid that I assume is going to be interested in something like robotics. But one of my favorite parts about being a mentor for FIRST is finding the kids who maybe never considered that possibility. I started to ask myself, what is my role as team leader? How can I inspire success? I made a conscious effort to address inequities and to recruit a diverse team. And FIRST gave me the tools and the training to point me in the right direction. A healthy team environment isn't always something that just comes naturally. It's something you have to cultivate. when I started thinking more about how we can come together as a team, so did they. And the more things started to fall into place. There's these moments where you see an idea or a concept just click and really come into focus. I'll never forget when our first prototype came together. All the hard work we had put into this team was starting to really pay off. You know, we always tell the kids that FIRST is about more than robots. It's something we want them to understand. But what I realized is, as teachers and mentors, it's something that we need to understand too.
And so I want to make sure that that everybody had an opportunity to get their mind focused in on, again, what diversity, equity, and inclusion looks like and what it is. And a lot of times it's good to give illustrations, either be a video or something visually that you can see on something that you're presenting. So you saw that. Now, what should students look for? And this is where it gets good. A lot of neat information. Again, we're talking about while searching for a school and while being enrolled in a school. So for me, and this is not just me, but this is also our D&I person, director of D&I, one of the key indicators of how much a school values diversity, equity, and inclusion is for, if you do not see a mission statement, you need to be concerned. And so that's numero uno, that's number one. I want to read our mission statement. So our meaning, I work at the Episcopal School of Dallas. The acronym is ESD. I want you to see this. You can read it for yourself, but I want you to see it as well. The Episcopal School of Dallas community is committed to creating, maintaining, and nurturing a diverse, inclusive environment as it prepares young men and women for lives of intellectual discovery, integrity, and purpose. We believe that diversity in our schools enhances the quality of education that ESD provides, and it's essential to the development of well-rounded people. And you can read the rest, go on and on and on about ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic background. That's number one. The second thing, what to look for, diversity in the classroom. Okay? And so I'm flipping it for you because this is something that you need to know, because your teachers should be, you should be holding your teachers accountable as well. So I'm giving you a little insight of what teachers should be teaching you and how they should be teaching you. So first thing is, teachers need to understand their students. They need to understand each and every one of you. The second thing is, they need to incorporate different teaching styles. Not everybody learns the same. Equal access to opportunities. Here's my example. I work at ESD. We're a school. We are a preparatory school. It costs about $30,000 to attend my school. We do give tuition assistance and financial aid to families. We've got about 30% of our families that are on tuition assistance and financial aid. And that comes in all shapes, sizes, and colors. And what I mean by that is everybody has equal access to that financial aid. But what I'm referencing is, we may have kids at the school that cannot afford a laptop or can't afford a Chromebook. So again, having equal access and opportunities to afford everybody the same platform to learn from. Next thing, celebrate diversity. You need to make sure we're celebrating diversity. You'll see that with the clubs that we offer at ESD. Encourage differing perspectives. Okay, it's important that you hear different perspectives in the classroom. Not everybody grows up the same. You'll have people of different ethnicities in the classroom. So it's important that you hear and listen and learn. And then the last, which is more important to me, which encompasses all of this, is diverse learning material. if you do not have diverse learning material in your classroom, you will go through a period of time where you will have microaggressions and macroaggressions. And I'm not saying that they still don't exist at ESD, because they do. But the more our community sees and hears about diverse work and sees diverse faces in what they're reading, it breaks some of these stereotypes and barriers down. Next thing.
Brother Henderson?
Yes.
Could you define for them microaggressions and macroaggressions, please?
Yeah. So when we're talking about microaggressions, we're talking about subtle things that happen, or subtle words that they come about throughout the day. When we're talking about macroaggressions, we're talking about strong words that are used that you may not, that you know are clearly maybe a racist comment, or it could be anything that mirrors that, so to speak. And so I can give you kind of a microaggression, an example of that. So an example of that would be, I'm walking down the hallway, and you know, and another colleague walks towards me, and says, you know, you need to shave. Well, that's kind of subtle. That's a passive aggressive, subtle approach. What are you saying, and why are you asking me, or why are you telling me I need to shave? So that's an example to me of a microaggression. Any questions on that, or on either one?
I should have a question on a previous one.
Yep.
So you said we should try to include everybody. So just how would you do it for somebody who doesn't really want to be included?
So I'm going to, so that's a good segue, a very good segue. It's a very good question, Mr. Sherman. And so there are ways that you can do it. And so when we're talking about clubs on campus, there are ways that you can offer things to individuals without forcing an individual to take part in it. The more that you offer at your school, the more offerings you have in your classroom, hopefully at some point they will embrace the idea of walking into a space that you have already invited them into, without continuing to enforce them, you know, or make them go into that space. Because you hit it on the head, Mr. Sherman. Every time you've got to make somebody do something, if you got to make me do something, it's going to be less likely that I'm going to want to do it. And so that's a very good question, because that covers a lot of what I'm going to cover here now and in a second. Are there any other questions? All right, let me move on. And this will help in a lot of ways. Clubs should be, we offer a lot of clubs at ESD. They should be an extension of your classroom. A lot of that depends on how it's set up and who runs it. At ESD, we say we create leaders on a journey. And so we train for leadership. And we want to make sure that everybody has that opportunity to be a leader. And so we do that in various forms and ways. And so almost 10 years ago, I was tasked, along with another colleague of mine who is no longer at ESD, to start affinity and alliance groups. And so how do you ask that question, Mr. Sherman? How do you make somebody do it, or how do you include somebody when they don't want to be included? So here's an example, how we learn from each other. So at ESD, we have affinity groups and we have alliance groups. When I'm talking about affinity groups, we're speaking from the I perspective, right? So you've got to be either of that ethnicity, right, to be a part of that group. And so you'll see here, we have, right now, we've currently got 3 affinity groups. We have a Black Student Union, we have a Jewish Student Union, and we have a World Studies Organization for Women. Okay? And so each group has its own mission statement. Right? And it's important that you define that. So when people are wanting to be in the group, they know what they're getting themselves into. We also have alliance groups. So we're talking from the we perspective. So I am an ally of a group. And so when we're talking about alliance groups, here is a list of alliance groups that we have at ESD. And so Asian Council, Biracial, Multiracial Alliance Group, Latinos Unidos, Religious Diversity, and Spectrum. And so there's no picking and choosing when you're talking about diversity. You can't leave out something and people think that you are diverse. So diversity comes in all shapes, forms, identities, everything, when we're talking about diversity. We also have, and that is for our high school group of students. For our middle school students, we have what you call Diversity Club. And so when we're talking about Diversity Club, that is an organization or a club that everybody can be a part of, no matter if it's dealing with affinity or alliance, everybody's involved in it. And then the most important thing is continued education. So we do offer opportunities for our students and faculty staff to attend regional and national student conferences every year. And so here are a list of conferences that we have our students and faculty attend. And this is just a small listing of what we have, as you can see and read. The next thing, what do you look for? Visual diversity. This is huge. So a real view glance of what your student body, faculty, and staff look like. If I walk in the doors of ESD, and when I walk in the door, the first offices that you see, to the right will be the admissions office. That's where I work. Across the hall, right across the hall, 2 steps across, will be our college guidance office. You need to see and make sure that those offices represent what you're looking for in a diverse faculty and student body. You also want to make sure that when we're giving you a tour of our campus or any campus that you're on, that it mirrors something of what you want to be a part of. We as African Americans make up 14% of the United States population. Okay? So at ESD, our diversity numbers are at about 22 or 23%. If we break it down, we're not close to that 14% in terms of our group, our African American group, we're not. Okay? As a school, we're trying to get close to the 40% mark in terms of number. But what we've done is we've created the resources, and resources, what I mean by that are people in place, support groups in place to make sure that we're accessible to you and that you see people that look like you in our positions. Okay? We're not perfect. We've got things that we've got to work on as well. But I can almost say within our diversity and inclusion department and admissions and other areas, we do have representation of people that look like me.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
So, can I answer this? But how difficult was that shift from going from like still like this not so diverse place to this really diverse?
Yes, that's a great question, Mr. Sherman. To answer your question, and I'm gonna answer your question, but I'm gonna paint a picture for you. I arrived at the Episcopal School of Dallas in 03. In 03, we were less than 2% diverse. It may have been 3% diverse. I was tasked to, after my first year, because of my skill set and what I had to bring to the table, you guys need to understand this and remember this. People are always watching you. Always. People are seeing how you're handling yourself and how you're carrying yourself. And it's important that we have to be, and I know you've heard this before, but we've got to be 10 times better than everybody else. And that's okay, because excellence is something that we all should be striving for in everything that we do. And so how difficult was it, Mr. Sherman? It was difficult. And it was difficult because ESD, the Episcopal School of Dallas, was not established. I'm just going to be transparent with you. It was not established for diverse families. It was not. We were formed in 1974. I was born in 73. So we were formed in 74. So most of your preparatory schools in and around Dallas, Dallas proper, were formed for your white audience, with the exception of one school, and that was Green Hill. Green Hill was established by a Jewish family, and from there, they expanded. And so their diversity, they're sitting at about 46, 44% diverse. So to answer your question, it's important that we have your mission statement, your philosophy, all of that in place to make sure you always have a go-to and something to go back to when it's needed. Let me move on. Some simple advice and steps to take when you need to address or take important concerns to your administration. I'm gonna go by this because I know time is running. Before any of this happens though, you need to make sure, you kids, you students, you need to make sure that you have these interpersonal skills. So we're talking about some nouns and adjectives that you need to have. You also need to be a salesman. You need to be able to sell yourself. You need to be able to sell what you're trying to get across. So you got to have some empathy. You got to be able to read people's body language. People need to see that your body language is good. You also need to have some vulnerability. Everything's not going to be perfect. You're going to make some mistakes. But then what are you going to do the next time you have an opportunity to present? All right? You can't just have one opportunity and you may say, hey, I didn't do a great job. Well, you've got to come back that next time and try to do a better job. Or just being able to step in the room with an adult and get them to understand why things are important. This is why you have to be confident. You got to draw some sort of connection. So that's why it's important that you have a connection on campus. You need to make sure you're a part of a student body or a group on campus. And then that requires establishing a line of trust. If nobody sees you, they're not going to know who you are and what you're about. Then you need to have a trust circle. So these should be people that are trying to make things equitable. We use the word equity above. So your parent should be your biggest advocate. Your biggest advocate. So in saying that, if something happens or if problems arise, or if you have a concern, or if you feel like your voice is not being heard, then have your parent or groups of parent write on your behalf. They're your biggest advocate. First, write to the principal. Second, school board. Third, your superintendent. If you're in private school now and things aren't being met, That equates to your upper school head of school, school board chairman. And then next, if you don't have a director of diversity and inclusion or equity and inclusion, somebody that is knowledgeable about this. This is so important. You got to have somebody that's knowledgeable about this. Everybody tries to fill this role because they look like me, and everybody can't do this. So you got to have somebody that's knowledgeable. You can also make sure that you have teachers that you can trust that advocate for you. Then you need to have other advocates like pastors or mentors. And then you need to have organizations that you can go to that may be able to speak on your behalf. And Brother Burnett does a great job of doing that with Kappa League and just with Kappa period. How am I on time, Brother Burnett?
Yep. So you want to close?
Yep.
Are there any questions for Mr. Henderson? Again, hey, Corey, thank you. Good presentation. And so before we go on to our next presenter, this is a leadership program. So maybe your question is, why are we covering this? You know, and again, I don't have to tell any of you what's going on out in the streets and what's going on in the current situation today. I thought it was important for you to hear this, because what I want you to do is to start thinking about the school that you go to now, or that you'll be going to in the fall, and how they stand regarding diversity and inclusion. And we're going to come back to that. I'm going to go to the next presenter. Yep.
Come on now, give me this box. There we go. All right, good evening, gentlemen. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good
Yes,
deal.
sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, just for some housekeeping, anybody, let's please mute your phones unless you're going to be asking a question or responding to something. And if anybody could engage your video, we would appreciate it. And when responding back, please give me your first and last name, your age, and what Kappa League program you're a part of, okay? Now, breakout group number 3. The email I have is a C-Pool Be Nice. Breakout group number 3 is the leader for breakout group number 3 on the video call. Yes, no?
Are you on?
Who was in breakout group number 3 last week? Nope.
I'm pretty sure I was.
And what's your name, young man?
Giovanni Malone.
All right, Mr. Malone. I was going to congratulate breakout group number 3 for answering the question correctly last week. The question was, there's 2 bodies lying on the floor with broken glass and water. The leader, your leader was going to get you together. You're going to discuss some possible ideas and come up with a solution or an answer. And the correct answer is the 2 bodies were fish, and the broken glass was from a tank that dropped. So you have the broken glass and the water. So that's the answer, the correct answer for that. And everybody that was involved in that is going to get one of these KL dog tags. Anybody see the dog tags? I was going to ask Brother Burnett if it's all right to request and for them to ask their parents if they can email me their mailing addresses so I can mail out everyone in breakout group number 3 one of these dog tags, and congratulations for that.
Yep, that'll be fine.
All right, now we're going to move forward. Sir?
I said, yes, that will be fine.
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you. Okay, now let's move forward with let the leader lead, effective leadership. Leaders are confident individuals. Now, you need to be true to yourself, and one of the surest ways to lose confidence is trying to be somebody else. You need to stop comparing yourself to others and visualize your success. Now, anybody on the call, can you ever tell me has there been a time whether you have or have not compared yourself to someone else and give an example? Anyone?
Yes, and I can give an example.
Give me your name and your age and your Kappa League group.
Deshaun Thomas, I'm 17. I'm part of the Columbia alumni. I'm in ROTC. and they're different platoons and all that. And sometimes I'll try to I see other people doing a little bit better than in other platoons, and I'll try to do that instead of just focusing on what I know and not try to overdo it.
Now, when you say you're comparing yourself to another person, are you putting out 100% effort for the things that you are doing?
Yes, sir.
But you still feel that you compare yourself to others? The ones in the other platoons, are you trying to emulate them as far as reaching that same
because
level?
I mean, they find a way to like get the people under control, because I got to deal with freshmen sometimes, and they find ways to get them under control and like get them to be snappy doing like drill and all that. And sometimes don't get that. I sometimes can't get them in check. So sometimes try kind of get envious if I say that.
All right. Okay. Envious. Sometimes you get envious. I understand that. But if you are in the program, you're in the ROTC program, then you're obviously there for a reason. Your parents have put you in that program, but also there's qualities about yourself, there's leadership qualities about yourself that you're maintaining and staying in that program. So you just need to build on the confidence that you already have, that your parents see, that your instructors see, that those around you see, and even your Kappa League mentors see, for you to be in that program. So start thinking of yourself as that leader. I'm confident enough, I'm old enough to work with and talk to these freshmen to make sure that they're acting accordingly while they're in the program and while they're under my guide. Can you do that?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Remember, you are 100% smart. You should never at any point doubt your own intelligence, and you always need to be prepared. Some confidence boosters. Take up space by standing tall. When you're sitting down, in our Kappa League meetings, we make sure that when our mentees are sitting down, that their backs are against the chair, both feet are flat on the floor, their hands are in front of them, and they're looking up, paying attention. That way it lets us, the presenters, know that they're paying attention to what we're saying, but also it gives the mentees an opportunity to take up the space in their chairs. So when you're standing or you're at meetings, make sure that you're taking up space by standing tall. If you're slumped over, that looks like it's a lack of confidence on your end. So always make sure that you're taking up your immediate space. You make direct eye contact with the person that you're engaging with or talking to. If you're looking away from someone, it's kind of disrespectful because they feel that you're not paying them attention, that you're not giving the due respect that you yourself want from somebody else when you're talking to them or explaining something. You should never fidget, biting your fingernails, moving around, especially when you're presenting. That's a confidence killer. It's like, well, I'm kind of nervous, and well, the people around me, they'll see that I'm a bit uncomfortable. I'm moving around. I'm adjusting my glasses. I'm tugging out my ear. Stand tall, stand proud, and present your argument or present your case or whatever it is that you're standing there and you're attempting to do. And you should always speak slowly and clearly. Mumbled thoughts mean mumbled words that'll be coming out of your mouth, and that's something that's a confidence killer. Can anybody on the video, can you give me some confidence boosters, things that you can do to boost your confidence when it's your time to lead or present?
One thing that you can do is motivate yourself. It's that saying that you can say that you know the material, that you studied this, that you've worked through this, that you do this in your head 1,000 times. So you can really just motivate yourself to say, hey, I know this, and I'm going to do great on this.
All right, I appreciate that, Mr. Sherman. One other thing you can do, if you know that you have something you're preparing for, be it a speech or a presentation in class, talk to yourself in the mirror. If you have your notes and your thoughts in front of you, stand in front of a mirror, look directly in the mirror, and start talking. And you'll start to see and pick up those things that you're not supposed to be doing that's going to be killing your confidence. Moving around, fidgeting, adjusting your glasses, is a confidence killer because you're sitting there thinking and searching for the words that you're about to say, but you know because you're already prepared. Being prepared is one of the best things you can do as far as your leadership abilities are concerned. Leaders are impressionable. Question, gentlemen, would you eat this? What's on the screen right now? Anybody?
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
No.
No, sir.
No way.
No.
No,
Nope.
sir.
No.
And
No,
why
sir.
is that a no,
No.
gentlemen?
The
It looks
presentation is bad.
disgusting.
It doesn't really look that.
It looks like vomit.
It doesn't
looked
look
It doesn't
unedible.
look
appetizing.
It
good.
doesn't.
What's in there?
It looked unedible.
It looks
Uh,
Supposed to be
okay. It looks
cheese.
unedible.
Doesn't look like food at all.
This
It
looks
doesn't look
it's
like food at
cooked.
all.
Wait,
Yeah.
pause,
What else?
pause,
Very
pause. The one
nasty.
on the right looks like grits.
The one on the right looks like grit. So it's not appetizing. It's not appealing. It doesn't look good.
It doesn't
Right?
look cooked.
It doesn't look cooked. It doesn't look good.
It
Right?
looked rushed.
Yes, sir.
So you wouldn't eat this. Then why would you dress like this?
I don't know why people dress like
I don't dress like
Is
that,
that
sir.
appeal? Is that appealing?
It's disgusting.
No, sir.
No.
Why would somebody want to
Not
see
at
your
all.
butt?
Exactly. I just showed you a plate of food that didn't look appealing, that wasn't appetizing. There was nothing that you wanted to be a part of. So why would you dress like this?
I do not know. It's kind of like a popular craze. So like some famous people do it, like mostly maybe rappers, and they want to
No.
have a craze.
But the best thing that you can do to be a leader is dress how you want to be addressed. So how are you going to be addressed looking like this? How would someone approach you and say anything to you looking like this? Would they deem you as someone that's a leader, someone that can formulate good ideas and get people behind them to follow?
No, sir. No, sir.
No.
No.
No, sir.
Now, we're not asking you to get dressed in suits and ties every day, especially when you're going to school, unless that's how you feel comfortable and that's something that you want to do. If getting dressed up with a shirt and tie on and rocking it and looking nice, if that's a confidence booster to you, then have at it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I used to go to school in ties all the time. Granted, it would be ties, jeans, and sneakers, but at least the top part was always tight and put together. But if that's what it's going to be for a confidence booster for you, then that's how you want to be addressed. Dress the way that you want to be addressed, and then you'll have those people look at you in a completely different light. Sagging pants, there's nothing appealing about sagging pants. Oversized clothes that don't fit you properly, nothing really appealing about that. Now, the distressed jeans, I know that's a popular fad, but the holes in the knees, the holes in the thighs, that's okay. I even have a pair of them myself. I'm not going to lie. But these tight jeans that you can barely get over your thighs, that's not appealing. There's nothing appealing about that. Not wearing a belt, shirts open, the shirt's half on, half off, not really a leadership type look. And you gentlemen can do better. You gentlemen will do better. Yes, sir.
About the saggy, not like baggy clothes and stuff. I wanted to say that I like to wear like baggy shirts and baggy hoodies and stuff. And I'm not saying like some people may like not find that appealing, and I don't, in my opinion, like that's what's up. You got your own style, but I'm saying like that's the actual style. So I just wanted to point that out.
You're absolutely right. It is actually a style, and it's not about judging a book by its cover, which we never want anybody to be judged by cover, because I'm quite sure you're much more intelligent than the things that you're wearing. But remember, a lot of things are based on appearance. And if it's based on appearance, then you have to, again, dress the way that you want to be addressed. So take some time every so often just to take your look in the mirror. You can see exactly how you look, how you're presenting yourself, because you're always being looked at, even when things you're not. Teachers are always looking at you, especially when you're in school. Parents are always checking you out to see what's going on with you. Walking around with friends, you got people that are going to be taking a look at you all the time. And if you want to be addressed and looked at in a certain manner, then you need to take your time to make sure that you're properly attired. So when they do approach you, they know that they're approaching somebody that's intelligent. They're approaching someone that takes great care in their appearance, and they want to be looked at and respected. Leaders are learners. You should be open to learning from anyone who requires the skill of listening. Leaders committed to being a lifelong listener know the value of being a great listener. These leaders listen more than they speak. They listen with an open mind and do not prejudge. Again, not judging a book by its cover. You can't come out just thinking that you know everything. Those are the individuals or leaders that usually fail, who already have it in their minds as, well, I don't need to ask any questions. I know exactly what's going on. Here, follow me. You always have to ask questions because there's always someone out there that might just have some information that's going to be useful to you going down the road, especially with you being a leader. Young, Black, and gifted, leading the pack. So this is your assignment. I want you to identify each young leader and email me. My email address is on the screen. It's ariesnoop@hotmail.com with your responses. There are 4 clues that I need you to look up, and the first person that emails me with the correct answer to all 4 identities is going to be getting one of these KL reversible dog tags. The first individual donated more than 1,000 backpacks and school supplies to Flint school children through the Pack Your Back Challenge. She also worked with the United Nations Girl Up Initiative and is the youngest Women's March Youth Ambassador. The second clue, his firm belief that reading enables children to reach the full potential led him to found the Read with Malcolm Youth Literacy Initiative. The organization's aim is to transform lives of young students through literacy, particularly in households and schools where students have less opportunity and fewer resources to read. Last year, he published a book, We Are All Kings, a motivational guide for young men, with the goal to motivate and inspire all young men across the world to know themselves that anything is possible if they just believe in themselves. Last, he's the founder and CEO of Weird Enough Productions. He works to correct the misrepresentation of young men of color in the media. A Forbes 30 Under 30 winner, his short films and web comics have been making waves in media by offering positive representations of Black men. He aims to combat all the issues that negative public perception can lead to: economic disadvantage, police aggression, longer jail sentences, and a distorted sense of Black achievement. Here's your assignment, gentlemen. Again, the first one that emails me the correct identity and ages, because they are all under 30 years of age, of those 4 individuals, I will mail out one of these reversible KL silver dog tags. Any questions?
No, sir.
All right. Brother Sykes, thank you.
No, sir.
We'll share. All right. Good afternoon. Good evening. Good evening. How y'all doing? My name is Kevin Jackson. I'm a member of the Beaumont alumni chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi, and I'm originally from New Orleans. I live here in Texas I live here in Texas. I've been here a long time, so I'm thrilled to be able to present this to you all, because I think this is something that's important, and it's called The Leader in Me, and it's by Dr. Stephen Covey. And what this basically talks about is the 7 habits of a good leader. So let's go ahead on and move on to the next slide. And this real quick text is, what's the definition of a leader? What is a leader? And it says a simple definition of a leader, of a leadership, is the art of motivating a group of people to act toward achieving a common goal in a business setting. There can be, this can mean directing workers and or colleagues with a strategy to meet the company's needs. What are the qualities of a good leader? Now, this is what's really important. I want you to hear this. To recap: honesty, delegate, communication, confidence, commitment, positive attitude, creativity, and the ability to inspire. These are some things that I think that are some qualities that everybody should have, especially good leaders. If you're let's be honest, let's talk about what that looks like. If you're a negative leader, if you're always on your, the young man was talking about the people with the ROTC and how he has inability sometimes to motivate his young troops underneath him. Sometimes what you have to do is you have to establish that relationship And then from there, be able to delegate and communicate and challenge them. And basically another word for challenge is inspiring. You have to inspire them. And that's going to be my little nugget for you. Try and inspire them and give them and talk to them. Sometimes, well, we're going to go into it now, and we're going to go into it. I'm going to stop right there. So what the 7 habits, things to remember. 7 habits of highly effective students. The first habit is to be proactive. To be proactive is to set goals. You want to set a goal of what you plan on doing. If you want to walk 100 miles, decide before you start walking that 100 miles what that's going to look like and how far you're going to do. I've often wondered, you ever heard of these people who say, well, this person walked from California to New York? Well, in the back of a lot of people's mind, you mean to tell me they walked all the way from California to New York without stopping? No. They set goals for themselves. I'm going to walk 25 miles today. I'm going to walk 25 miles tomorrow. That's what goals look like. Always begin, and that goes to the next. Begin with the end in mind. When you begin something, kind of have an idea of what you want it to look like at the end. You know, if you're walking from California to New York, you're probably gonna need a good foot soaker once you get to New York. You're gonna need some rest. So begin with the end in mind. Know what your days are gonna look like and prepare for that. A lot of times the people that are really good with this are people that deal with bullies. When you start your day off with a bully, what do? You find out and you figure out where that bully is going to be and how you're going to do your best to avoid that bully. Now that's not really what you want to do, but that's generally what happens. But you begin with the end in mind, and you preparing yourself. Does that make it a good idea? No, but that's where it is. Thirdly, we're going to put first things first. Putting first things first means time management, vision. A lot of times, even in my household with my kids, y'all guys, you're on these phones. You're on these phones. You're thinking in the back of your mind, I can multitask. Well, at that time right there, you got to put first things first, and especially for you guys that are entering college. Hey man, it's going to be a part of the end all parties, always in college. More importantly, what you got to do is you have to learn to put aside present pleasures for future benefits. You have to learn to know what's important and what's not important. And that's one thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to manage your time. Let's say you decide you want to pledge Kappa while you're in college. Well, you got to manage your time, because now you have something extra that you have to learn and study and get information for. So all of those things about time, you have to have a vision. You have to see it in order to believe it. If you don't see it, and if you don't envision it, and if you don't decide how you're going to do it and make time for it, that's one thing. When I was at Grambling State University, the one thing I did was, this was before Google and all these things came out, I kept a roadmap, because I would like to try new ways to get back from Grambling to New Orleans to see which way was the fastest, which way did I like the best. But again, I began with the end in mind. I looked at the map, I saw which way would be best, because of course, like everyone's been saying, we're not always welcomed in every town. So you have to be careful, and I had to do those types of things. And that's part of, being a leader too, because if you have somebody else in your car with you, or if you ride with somebody, you want to be able to kind of give advice or maybe make those decisions, because not only is your life in your hands, but someone else's life in your hands as well. 4, think win-win. You always, when you're a leader, you got to think win-win. When you're in situations like this here, conflict management, you gotta learn how to deal with these wins. You always want to try and go for the win. You always want to try and do your best. Win-win does not always mean you're winning like it's winning the game. Win-win means, hey man, I'm gonna do my best and I'm gonna give it all I have. Again, putting aside present pleasures for future benefits. You're gonna hear me say that again and again tonight, because at the end of the day, if you do not learn to put aside present pleasures for future benefits, there will be no leader in you. There will only be that person that everybody's wondering what happened to. You have to learn to do that. That's one of the main ingredients of being a leader, is learning how to maximize your time and minimize sometimes your efforts. You have to work smarter, not harder. And that's one of the things you have to do in college. You guys have a ample opportunity here in your time going to college, because you're in the age of computers. I can remember when, I don't know how old everybody else is here, but I can remember when there was a big floppy disk. Brother Burnett, do you remember those big floppy disks? They used to wave them around. I'm telling my age right now, and then eventually they shrunk down to the little small hard disk. But as time goes on, you know, technology is gotten better and better and better. You guys are in a win-win situation. You can utilize your technology for your benefit to learn about things and always be on the upside. Going back to it again, going back to the habit number 1 again, being proactive. What does that look like? What does that look like when you're a leader? Well, being able to create voter drives. I know a lot of times we say, well, everybody else is doing voter drives. Everybody else is doing marches. Well, you haven't done your march. You haven't done your voter drive. You haven't done your census. All of these things help. And it doesn't matter if they've already happened 2 weeks ago. Do it again. Sometimes what you don't understand is, and this is about time management, we are so busy with doing things in our lives. Of course, we forget. So we have to be proactive about keeping things on other people's minds. Again, we're going to go back to habit 2. Begin with the end in mind. We're not doing it to copy off of somebody. We're doing it to do what? To keep it fresh on someone's mind. Moving on to habit 3 before we go on and keep going. Put first things first. Remember what's important. If this is something you truly want to do, if being a leader is what you truly want to be, then you have to work toward that. Being a leader, people aren't born leaders. I don't care what anybody says. You have to work to be a leader. You have to work into that situation. No one is ever really born. Now, you may be born to royalty, but you're not going to be born a leader. It doesn't really matter. And of course, again, think win-win. What would be your win if you had a blood drive or a census or something else? I live in Southeast Texas where hurricanes are prevalent. And one of the things that happened, I can remember last year when Imelda came, was they were talking about how because of the census, we may not have enough money. They may not have enough money to give to the counties in this area. Okay, begin with the win-win. If something else tragic happens like this, or something, you know, traumatic happens like this here, if we all get out and put efforts in to do our census now, then later on it could come back to help us in our favor. Now this one here, habit 5. Habit 5 is the habit that we all have to do first. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Seek first to understand, then be understood. I can kind of tie that into what my young man said when he was saying he liked to wear baggy pants and baggy clothes. Before we can judge you on wearing those baggy pants and those baggy clothes, then we should seek first to find out who you are. And then we can maybe tell you, hey, you know, I think you're a good-looking young man. You're an honest guy. But, you know, it would help if you maybe wore some clothes that were a lot less baggy, maybe. You have to, sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And that's what seek first to understand. We have to be able to listen to what people want. And that's a very good characteristic of a good leader. A good leader not only has to be a good follower first, but a good leader also has to be a good listener. You have to listen to what the people want. You have to listen to what your people that are underneath you want and what they desire. I'm an educator, and the one thing that that we do, that my principal does now is she has an open door policy. So I'm a behavior interventionist. If I have a problem, I walk in there and I explain to her what my problem is and what my concern is, and we talk about it. Sometimes it may go in your way, sometimes it won't, but you have to be able to communicate that to someone. And so that's you have to also understand that it may be some things that I'm not quite privy to. All right, number 6, synergize. We have to be able to take our energies and be able to utilize that energy that we have. Okay, if I'm good at electronics but someone else is good at building, then we have to be able to take our knowledge of building and electronics if we want to build a car or build a rocket. These are things that we have to do in order to we have to be creative. And I'm gonna stop right there for one reason. Everybody wants to be a leader. Everybody wants to be a leader, but like my grandmama would always tell me, everybody wants to be the chief, but nobody wants to be the non-type warrior. You got to be able to be a warrior before you become a chief. You got to be able to be in the trenches and put some work in before you decide you want to be a leader. Because one thing about a leader is it's not always easy to lead a group of people, and you're going to have difficulties. But one thing about those difficulties, they will strengthen you. But of course, you have to know that by being first a follower and a good listener. Now, most importantly, and you guys, I know you're young, you're going to think, this is not important. Sharpen your saw. Sharpen your saw basically means, guys, being able to get you some rest, being able to go into a quiet place and think. Not put on your rap music, not put on your Kevin Gates, not put on your whomever else, Lil Baby or Lil Boosie, whomever you're listening to, but being able to just kind of sit still and kind of let your thoughts flow through your mind a little bit and think about your next move and think about what you're going to do. And sometimes that means just sleeping and resting. Sharpening your saw is very important because, a lot of times we think, oh man, I just didn't have it in me. Well, you probably did have it in you, but you just didn't have the energy in you to do those types of things. You have to, these things in order to be a good leader, you have to be able to get rest. You have to be able to be alone to kind of hear your thoughts. And these are things, those are the highly effective habits of effective students, but they're highly effective habits of a human being and a person, a good leader as well. All of these things kind of intertwine with one another. Characteristics of a leader, you got to accept responsibility. You see yourself as primarily responsible for your outcomes and your experiences. You have to be self-motivated. That's the next one. You can't wait for someone else to decide that they're going to go and build a rocket before you go build a rocket. Just imagine where we would be if Martin Luther King and A. Philip Randolph had actually waited before they decided to do the things they did. And I mentioned A. Philip Randolph simply because, does anybody know who A. Philip Randolph is? Who can tell me
that? Richard Chandler.
No, I'm sorry, A. Philip Randolph.
I was introducing myself. I'm sorry about that, sir.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
A. Philip Randolph was one of the leaders of the civil rights movement. He marched with Dr. King, and he was very instrumental in pushing the agenda.
Okay, good deal. Now I can expound. That was very good. Now I'm gonna expound on that a little bit. And
hey, Brother Jackson, we're gonna have to get ready to wrap up here.
Okay. Okay. No problem. So I can expound on that real quick and just tell you that he actually was the organizer of the March on Washington. And hey, we're gonna keep it going real quick. Remember these things, guys: self-management, and make sure you stay independent. I'm going to go on to the last slide because I know we have to finish up. But I just want to say, guys, you got to, in order to be a good leader, you got to keep it 100. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. And secondly, learn to put aside present pleasures for future benefits. If you can do those things, guys, the sky is the limit for you. War will be your oyster, but you have to be able to do that in order to find the leader in you. You have to learn those habits and be able to reproduce them, and they don't always come about one after the other, but you're gonna have to be able to figure that out as life goes on, and more importantly, know yourself. As long as when you begin to know yourself and know your limitations and know what you're good at and what you're not good at, the better you will be. And that's where the synergy comes in at. Surround yourself with people that are different from you, yet like people with you, and you can grow and do big things. Thank you, Brother Burnett, for allowing me to speak. You guys have a great night.
Thank you, Brother Jackson. Could you unshare your screen and
yes, sir.
One thing before we go?
Okay, let me try that.
Again, we're gonna close this out. I appreciate you. Your assignment will be up tomorrow, as well as your video that you can come back and review. And so, so that this will also be, this is our second session on leadership. This will be the last lecture session that we have. Everything else will be, will be totally interactive. So I do want to cover real quick, our homework that you had to tie in, and, so just a couple examples. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. So again,
Yes,
Austin Murphy talked about coaching leadership style, and I'll let you read it there real quick. But that was his example, which was a very good one on using coaching leadership style. Also, Ryan McDaniels had a very good one on using directive leadership style. And I'll let you look at that. And last one was Trey Jones, had a very good explanation on being a delegating leader. And I'll let you look at that. So again, if you didn't do your homework from before, please go back and catch up. Like I said, there'll be an assignment each week. And closing out, work will win, wishing won't, which basically means, hey, whatever you can wish for whatever, you got to be willing to put the work in to get it done. So again, your assignment will be posted to the Google Classroom. Remember your journal, and we'll meet next Tuesday, June 30th. And again, I appreciate you, and could come with your minds and voices, because a lot of that next week is going to be you guys talking and you guys speaking up. So I want to tell you I appreciate you, and you guys have a great week, and be safe. And I will see you next Tuesday.